और साइप्रस के लोगों का ऐसे हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं, आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। यह सम्मान केवल मेरा, नरेंद्र मोदी का सम्मान नहीं है, ये 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों का सम्मान है। उनके सामर्थ्य और आकांक्षाओं का ये सम्मान है। ये हमारे देश के सांस्कृतिक भाईचारे और वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की विचारधारा का सम्मान है। मैं ये अवार्ड भारत और साइप्रस के मैत्रीपूर्ण संबंधों को, हमारे साझा मूल्यों और हमारी पारस्परिक समझ को समर्पित करता हूं। सभी भारतीयों की ओर से मैं इस सम्मान को अत्यंत विनम्रता और कृतज्ञता से स्वीकार करता हूं। यह अवार्ड शांति, सुरक्षा, संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता और हमारे लोगों की समृद्धि के लिए हमारी अटूट प्रतिबद्धता का प्रतीक है। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं इस सम्मान को भारत और साइप्रस के संबंधों के प्रति एक जिम्मेदारी के रूप में इसका महत्व मैं समझता हूं और मैं उस भाव से इसको लेता हूं। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हमारी सक्रिय साझेदारी आने वाले समय में और भी नई ऊंचाइयों को छुएगी। हम मिलकर न केवल अपने देशों के विकास को मजबूत करेंगे, बल्कि एक शांतिपूर्ण और सुरक्षित वैश्विक वातावरण के लिए, उसके निर्माण के लिए भी मिलकर के योगदान देंगे। मैं फिर एक बार इस सम्मान के लिए आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
So there we saw the Prime Minister accepting the top honor of Cyprus, the Grand Cross of the Order of Makarios III, one of the few awards, world leaders to get the award on behalf of the government of Cyprus. We're standing by for the delegation-level talks between the two principals, the leaders of India and Cyprus, followed by a joint press statement. We'll get to all that in just a bit, but I believe we still have with us our guests on this broadcast.
Yes, Professor Bharadwaj, the point that Ambassador Panda was making earlier of how it is important that India has strategic alliances with various countries in the region, and why it makes sense to continue to stand with Cyprus on the issue of its territorial integrity and sovereignty, on the issue of the Cyprus problem. I would want to ask you about whether you would extend the same argument to how Turkey treats Cyprus in the maritime domain, because we often see India and the world questioning what China does in the South China Sea, but here Turkey says that Cyprus cannot assert its maritime rights as any other country because it does not enjoy those exclusive economic zone rights because it's a very small island nation, which again is in contravention of the international law. So do you think that this is also a point that could be mentioned in the joint statement later when it's out in print?
No, absolutely correct. See, I should bring before you 2-3 points. One is, of course, while we are keeping Turkey into mind, that we find that Turkey is behaving like the Chinese expansionist approach, that the China is trying to expand itself in the South China Sea. In the same manner, Turkey is also trying to expand its rights in the Mediterranean region. But keeping Cyprus and India into mind, we have to be very clear that both the countries, either Cyprus or India, both are law-abiding country, and we believe in the UN Charter, and we are basically strictly following the UN resolutions, either in the case of the Kashmir issue or on the territory that has been forcefully occupied by Turkey in Cyprus. That we are asking that let the UN resolutions should be adopted to release, to free this territory which has been occupied by Turkey. And both the countries like Cyprus and India is against these kinds of imperialist, these kinds of expansionist approach of any country, either in Europe or in Middle East or in South Asia or in Southeast Asian countries, and that brings there is a conversion of interest. That number of countries in Southeast Asia like Vietnam, they want to develop the close partnership with India to counterbalance the Chinese hegemonic tendencies, Middle Kingdom theory. In the same manner, Cyprus is also looking forward to have a strategic partnership with India to counter the hegemonic tendencies of Turkey. You know, Turkey is now a new, you can say, new ambitious country in the Islamic world. They want to take the leadership of Islamic world into its account. That if I remember correctly, that in 2021. There was one Islamic summit, and there were race between Turkey, Iran, and Malaysia that we will lead the Islamic world, and that it has been with the Saudi Arabia that it should come either to the Iran or to the Turkey that they will lead. But we are very the world is very much clear. The Islamic world is very much clear that these states are they are particularly Iran, if I'll say Pakistan, and all these states are rogue states, and you can say believes in the more fanatic and more Islamist ideology. Turkey is trying to be everywhere in their diplomatic gestures either, and wants to facilitate all the countries, but siding with the Pakistan in this recent Pahalgam attack means that they are basically more inspired by the religious fanatic ideologies rather than taking about and abiding with about the international rules and regulations or territorial integrity and sovereignty of other countries. So you can see that the ambitions of the leader like Erdogan and ambitions of the country of like China and Turkey are trying to volatile or trying to create unrest in different parts of the world. And now the liberal democratic countries, they are trying to mobilize, trying to come together to counter these rogue states, these expansionist states in the in its strategic policies. India, of course, always talking about the human centric development. India is, of course, the home of Mahatma Gandhi and home of Gautam Buddha. We talks about the non-violence, and you know, Cyprus has also celebrated 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. They have also set up a statue of Mahatma Gandhi in Cyprus. So they are highly inspired the ethos and values and the principles of the Indian culture, Indian society, Indian leaders that has been dominating discourse in recent past. Of course, that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision to promote the Indian heritage, Indian culture, Indian medicine, Indian methods of life like yoga, that has also been popularized and accepted by around 177 countries in the world, and Cyprus is one of them. So you can see that India's soft power techniques and strategy has impressed number of countries in the world to develop a strong, close, constructive partnership with India, including Cyprus. So, in fact, while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting any part of the world, like correctly mentioned, the 22 countries has already honored Prime Minister Narendra Modi with their highest award. Now, today is 23rd country is the Cyprus that has also honored the highest honor and award of Cyprus to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So you can see that they are highly impressed with the leadership of India or Indian leaders that who is representing 140 crores of the people of in the world. So these kind of gestures and the posturing or the policies have been attracting to the world community. Even the Chinese premium has also accepted that India's soft power strength that has been impressed to all over the world. Wherever you are going, we are proud to be Indian. And the way the Indian diaspora community are greeting to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, even in Cyprus, you can see that the slogans of Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Vande Mataram, and the way Prime Minister Narendra Modi was greeting to the Indian community by namaste and by handshaking and all that has showing that we are very accommodative, we are very inclusive, and we respect the humanities. We do not believe to hegemonize any person or any country for their for our self interest. So these kind of values have been attracted India towards the in the international fora and international. So these are the things that you can see that all the countries in the world, either in the Southeast Asia or in East Asia or in the European countries, they want to develop a comprehensive strategic partnership with India. They want to have a developmental tie with India. They are also trying to, because India is also a emerging middle class market. It was fifth largest economy. Now it is becoming third largest economy in the world. It is attracting all the countries who are looking India as a market, particularly in the crude oil and all that. And you know, the Mediterranean Sea is having a huge potentials of the hydrocarbon and crude oil resources that India is looking forward to have this participation, exploration in these areas to have constant energy supply to the Indian market. In the same manner, the communities like the Cyprus is also looking forward to have more investment in India. Now it is the 10th largest investor in India, but we are targeting about $100 billion investment in India. While there were a cultural summit in Cyprus in 2023, India's eight startup programs has participated in this in that cultural summit, and so you can see that the India's visibility all over has been witnessed, and it has attracted number of investors, number of companies to invest in India, and Indian scientists, Indian doctors, Indian nurse, Indian IT specialists, they are all very much welcomed, and they are all very much appreciated everywhere in the world, either in the Europe or America or other major economies and the world. So you can see that there are number of opportunities, number of expectations, and number of agreements that India is trying to develop with Cyprus, particularly while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting to this country. And then the same points would be raised while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is participating in G7, where he will put forward the arguments and the expectations of the global South, while particularly the global commons and the environmental issues. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very fascinating about the green energy, and he has initiated the International Solar Alliance, and through that we are promoting and transitioning the energy towards the renewable energy, like either solar or or you can say wind energy, and we are also trying to have trying to use the battery systems and all for transportations and all that in Indian cities. So you can see that we are very committed to the international norms. We are very committed to the Paris Agreement. We are actively participating in COP summits. And there we are also trying to have the climate justice. In this climate justice, particularly India is also standing with the global south, where the developed countries, the global north, should bear more responsibility while protecting the environment. The global
Absolutely.
north.
So you make a very important point on the issue of energy security, and you are also taking it to the G7 summit. But focusing on Cyprus for now, Ramesh, we have another guest joining us.
Right, let's take a moment to welcome another guest who is joining us on this special broadcast. Joining us is Ambassador Yashvardhan Sinha, a former Indian High Commissioner to the UK, Sri Lanka, and a former Indian envoy to Venezuela. Ambassador Sinha, welcome to this special broadcast. Now, as the two leaders head into the delegation-level talks, may I ask you for your opening comments, your first impressions of the PM's visit to Cyprus, and your thoughts on how the visit is shaping up?
Thank you for having me, Ramesh.
Welcome.
And I would like to frame it in the context of what has happened in the recent past. You must realize that this is the first visit abroad of Prime Minister Modi after Operation Sindoor, and a first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Cyprus in, 23 years. I think the last visit was by Prime Minister Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 2002. Now, I think the previous speaker has probably spoken about the close links between Cyprus and India, long-standing links as founding members of the non-aligned movement. We have supported each other, not just bilaterally, but also in international fora. And in the particular context of Cyprus's geographical location and geopolitical importance, I think we are sending out a very strong message, not only to Cyprus and the European Union, who we have been engaging closely, but other countries neighboring Cyprus, about where we stand as far as Cyprus is concerned and where our bilateral relations are headed to. And the sort of welcome that Prime Minister Modi has got in Nicosia, in Cyprus, is unprecedented. And I think we can look forward to much closer relations in all spheres between India and Cyprus. So as you're aware, Cyprus is assuming the presidency of the European Union next year and will play a very important role in India-EU relations. But bilaterally, as I said, we've had very close relations, and I think we will see an enhanced defense cooperation between India and Cyprus. And India has emerged as a major exporter of defense equipment and armaments and ammunition. And I'm sure Cyprus would like to avail of the critical technologies available in India in defense production. And I think some of our equipment, if I can put, some of our arms and armaments have proven themselves during the recent conflict with Pakistan. So I think the defense component is very important. The political component is extremely important because, as I said, Cyprus is assuming the presidency of the European Union. And given our long-standing links, I think it can be an entry port into Europe for Indian business, whether it's in fintech and whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in the services industry, in the IT and IT-enabled services. I think Cyprus has a well-developed infrastructure and market and can be utilized by Indian businesses in tie-ups with the larger European continent and the EU in particular. So I think this is the right moment for our Prime Minister to be in Cyprus, and he is headed to the G7, which again will be very important for India since he has been, this is his sixth visit, I think, to a G7 summit as an invitee. And I think India is a very valued and cherished partner as far as the other G7 countries are concerned.
Yes, Ambassador, do you also see Cyprus as a key link in IMEC? We know that there are tensions in West Asia, and hence we don't expect much insofar as West Asian component or Middle East component of IMEC is concerned. But do you think that, considering that there are so many ports in particularly the southern Mediterranean arc, and Cyprus, of course, is strategically placed. So do you see a lot of potential in terms of port-led infrastructure and shipping and more shipping of gas, for instance, because we know that Cyprus is sitting on a lot of volumes of gas, and there is obstructionism again happening there by Turkey there. So do you think that in the context of connectivity and energy security, Cyprus could play a big role going forward?
Absolutely. I think it's very important because as far as the IMEC goes, I think Cyprus would play a key role. And as you mentioned, because the latest tensions between Iran and Israel and the very disturbed Middle East situation, we hope that this is a passing phase and matters would be resolved sooner than later, because for us, connectivity to Europe is very important. And there is a lot of emphasis on, in fact, you recall at the G20 summit, there was also discussions on this IMEC. And I think Cyprus would play an important role. As far as the hydrocarbons are concerned and gas, I mean, unfortunately, we have a situation where there has been an illegal invasion of parts of Cyprus in the Turkish-occupied territory of northern Cyprus, and they play an obstructionist role. And that is why I think India's relations with Cyprus, Greece, and other like-minded countries is extremely important, because I think a message needs to be sent to the right quarters that India is not a small country. India is not, it's a major economy, and the fifth largest, about to become the fourth largest by the end of the year. And I think if that happens, and then India is again slated to become the third largest in a few years, I think everybody is taking India seriously, not just economically, but politically, given its size and the role that it plays in international affairs. I think this visit is particularly significant, and any agreements that come out of this would need to be assiduously pursued by both sides, so that there can be a quantitative jump in terms of the relationship bilateral as well as multilateral through the EU. So I think Cyprus plays an important role there.
Before I go across to Professor Bharadwaj, Ambassador Sinha, since you referred to the ongoing Iran-Israel tensions, now besides Turkey, of course, Iran-Israel tensions also engage the attention of Cyprus and India alike. Do you think the bilateral talks might touch upon that issue as well? I ask you this because one can get a sense of the urgency and immediacy of the issue by looking at the geography of Cyprus. Now, Haifa in Israel is closer to Cyprus than, say, Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. And if one stands on the shores of Cyprus, you can actually see missiles flying over Israeli skies.
Absolutely. I think certainly the Iran-Israel conflict would feature in discussions, and an exchange of views on such an issue would be extremely beneficial, I think, to both sides. And as you're aware, India has good relations with Israel and Iran. And you mentioned Haifa, and I'm reminded of the role played by the Indian cavalry, the Jodhpur Lancers and others during the First World War in 1918, liberating Haifa from Ottoman Turkish rule. And it was very important. People remember that even now. And I think India, as again, plays a very important role now as a major power. And I think India is in a position we have been advising restraint to both the combatants, both Iran and Israel. We have ties with both these countries. So I think you will see India playing an increasingly important role as time goes by in international affairs, in terms of not only resolving conflicts, but also because the fact that India's voice is heard in chancelleries across the world.
Coming to you, Professor, now, like you mentioned, and the guests here have all mentioned about how Cyprus will be becoming the president of the EU Council 1st January onwards for 6 months. Now, this is a crucial time for India-EU relationship. One of the guests talked about how the European Union as a whole is becoming extremely significant for India, and there could be a win-win partnership between India and Europe, considering how Donald Trump is backtracking on multilateralism and waging trade wars. But in terms of FTA talks between India and EU, they've been long drawn. We've succeeded on the UK front. Do you expect Cyprus to play a positive role there, a pivotal role, expediting the FTA negotiations?
Yeah, let me put in this way. There is more conversion of interest between India and Cyprus on number of global and regional issues, including the trade and investment regimes. There is very less that has the diversion between India and Cyprus, either in the issue of trade, either investment, security issues, and you can say that diplomatic and military partnership. So India has developed a very conscious military strategic partnership with the United States, and the same manner we have developed very close strategic partnership with France and UK. And India is also becoming, a very significant trade partner with the European countries. Though Cyprus is not the member of NATO, but Cyprus is the member of the European Union, and this would also put India's concerns before either the economic as well as the security concerns before the European economic and security communities, that India's viewpoint should be heard in proper, in just a manner. This is one. The second point, you correctly pointed out that India is now, because India did not join RCEP, so India is looking forward to have more free trade agreements with the number of countries, and there we are aspiring to have more close commercial and trade ties with the European Union. And we are also looking forward to have our products destinations to the European countries. So definitely India is looking forward. Let the Cyprus being the president, the chair of the European Union for the coming year onward, will put India's case in a more effective way. Now let me put one very important point to understand this Cyprus and India relations in general. While we are looking that there are now deep interactions at the apex level, at the macro level, while Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited after 23 years, but you can see that how foreign ministers are extensively engaged with the counterpart in Cyprus for a number of issues of development and strategic partnership. And there are also other ministers, other engagements, high-level visits has been taken place. But what is less, and I think that we can work more about the civil society dialogues, because that would give a space to understand India's ethos and India's culture, India's values to Cyprus in particular, and the European countries in general. So that more civil societal interactions between the journalists, between the lawyers, between the academia, and like you can say track two diplomacies between the two countries can strengthen India's partnership, India's viewpoint in the European Union through Cyprus. And I'm sure this would further enhance that people-to-people contact at the micro level, and that is very important because Indian movies are very popular in Cyprus. India's web series are now also becoming very popular, and they are very much familiar with the Indian culture and ethos through the Bollywood and all that, yoga, all these. But this would also be further institutionalized while Cyprus is taking the chairmanship of the European Union. So you can see that this partnership with Cyprus would be a comprehensive partnership that would further with the European Union, where India is looking very eagerly to have this close strategic partners, because India sometimes there are the number of factors. While the Chinese has come out with the Belt and Road initiatives, Chinese has shown the deep pockets and investment and trade attractions to the European countries, including Germany and Italy. Italy has joined Belt and Road initiative because there were no alternative. Now India has come out with an alternative to have the India Middle East, Europe economic corridor, and there are opportunities to invest in India and the European countries. So now, since we have developed an alternative discourse for the developments, that these countries would definitely love to have more closer trade and investment ties with India. Very important point has been raised while you're talking about, Ambassador, about the Israel and the Iran conflicts. You know why India has sided with the Israel? Because Israel has also suffered from the terrorist attacks from the Hamas. So we are against any kind of terror act that is taking place all over the world. So we are basically denouncing and condemning all kinds of terror either the Hamas is doing or other states is promoting and supporting the terror and becoming a terror-sponsored state. Turkey has become a terror-sponsored state while they are supporting Pakistan in the recent Operation Sindoor, or you can say that endorsing the Pahalgam attack in Kashmir. So I think these countries should be isolated, and I'm sure that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus will isolate Turkey and Pakistan from the European communities, and that G7 participation, G7 will further isolate these countries who are promoting and supporting the terrorism. And I'm sure that the other countries who had also been sometimes that hurdle in bringing the terrorists on trial, like the Chinese, they were not happy to include the terrorists in the UN blacklist and all that. I'm sure they will also learn that any kind of terror acts would not be accepted. And one more very important point, and that is the strength of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. While you have seen that we have the democratic environment at home, we have all the political parties, they can have their views about different issues, but on the foreign policy issues and on the security issues, that there is consensus and there is one voice, that is India's voice. And that India has sent the different delegations in the different part of the world, has comprising different political parties and ideological people, but they were having one voice, that India will not tolerate about any kind of terrorism. We will have the zero tolerance towards terrorism, and we are deploring, we are against those countries who are promoting terrorism and doing the fanatic and religious activities, fundamentalism, extremism in South Asia and other part of the world. So you can see that these kinds of gesture and posture of India will make this issue a global issue, and the countries who are having the double standard on terrorism and who are having the double standard on the number of other issues, I think they will understand, and they will side with the justice, they will side with the peace that India is talking and promoting all over the world. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always talked, because we are not we do not believe in the military actions, we do not believe in the war. In fact, we want to resolve all the conflicts through discussions, diplomacy and dialogue. Even on the Ukraine-Russia war, we have talked about, let's have the dialogue and let the countries involved for the diplomatic efforts to resolve these conflicts. We are not supporting any kind of humanitarian crisis in this. Even the same thing as in the Iran and Israel context, that we are having very strong economic partnership with the Iran. We do not want to spoil. We want to connect with Iran through international north-south corridor connecting to Central Asia and Russia. But we are also not against we are also not accepting that any country promotes terrorism and fundamentalism in the region.
Professor, do stay on. Let me go across to Ambassador Sinha. Ambassador Sinha, while we are waiting for the first visuals of the delegation level talks between the leaders of India and Cyprus, I want to go back to the point you were making earlier on in your intervention there. You refer to the scope for doing more on the defense front between India and Cyprus. Now, in that context, if we zoom out of the region and look at the Southern Caucasus as well, besides the Mediterranean, we've seen that India has, is selling arms to Armenia, for instance. The Armenia is buying the Akash surface-to-air missiles from India. Talking about defense in particular, do you see an alliance of sorts, if not an alliance, a partnership of sorts between India, Cyprus, Greece and Armenia to counter the Turkey, Pakistan, Azerbaijan nexus, as it were?
Ramesh, I don't see an alliance as such because I think India generally eschews, alliances, but partnerships certainly. And these partnerships don't necessarily have to be aimed against any other group of countries. But the very fact, and if you, I don't know if you remember that our relationship with Cyprus, I mean, the old guard still remembers with gratitude the role played by General Timaya. General Timaya was, of course, our army chief, and he was the commander of the UN peacekeeping forces in Cyprus in 1964-65. If I remember correctly, he died while on duty.
Indeed, he died in harness in Cyprus,
right.
Ambassador.
That's right. So I think we have that history with Archbishop Makarios, long-serving president, and very close relationship with the Indian leadership. Whether it was a non-aligned summit, we're also members of the Commonwealth, incidentally. So we have a lot in common. And to build on that, we are able to, since we have a similar legal system, etc., it's much easier. We have so many in common and commonalities. So as far as defense equipment is concerned, I'm not sure exactly what Cyprus would require, but certainly, arms and ammunition is something that Cyprus would require, considering that they have a part of their territory under illegal occupation, part of their country, and a constant threat in the Aegean Sea from an expansionist country like Turkey, particularly under the present government there. So I think certainly partnerships with Greece and Cyprus and Armenia are already taking place, and further strengthening can be envisaged. But as I said, not necessarily in an alliance against a group of countries, but certainly bilaterally and, if required, collectively.
Right. So what is the message that's going out to Ankara, and would Ankara be bothered by the visit of the Prime Ministers, particularly to Cyprus? Do you think that Ankara would be affected? I'm given to understand that there is already a business delegation from Turkey in Mumbai, and so it means that Turkey does want to continue to have business contacts with India, economic contacts with India. There's already a bilateral trade volume of $10 billion between India and Turkey. So what are the stakes really for Ankara? What do you think Erdogan must be thinking?
You see, as far as Turkey is concerned, India is a very important partner, and Turkish relations also go back. If you recall, Mahatma Gandhi used the Khilafat movement in the early 20th century to try and unify India. I mean, the Indians to fight against the British. Now, our relations when Mustafa Kemal came to power, he led a sort of secular government, which was very much in sync with what we wanted and what we became after independence. However, the problem is not between the Turkish people and the Indian people. There is a lot of bonhomie, there is a lot of respect. There are a large number of Indian tourists who go there. A large number of Turkish companies are present in India. But the problem is the current government of Turkey, led by President Erdogan. He has adopted positions inimical to India. So you cannot have a situation where the president of the country sides with your enemy openly, seeks to undermine your territorial integrity and sovereignty, and you have business as usual with that country. So I think we need to decide where we need to go. And certainly, as far as trade is concerned, people-to-people contacts, they've been on for a long time. But we need to consider whether we should allow Turkish companies in sensitive areas of our economy, because with their president espousing Pakistan's cause at various fora, I think we need to be doubly careful. I'm sure the government is reviewing the relationship. But as I said, the contacts between the people of the two countries remain warm, remain close. So I think we need to take a call on how we handle that relationship.
Ambassador Sinha, just to amplify the point you were making there about India's contribution to UN peacekeeping force in Cyprus, if I can pull up the relevant information.
Sorry to test. I hope audio is okay.
Ambassador Sinha, General Thimayya died in harness in Cyprus in 1965, and he was honored by Cyprus with a commemorative stamp, and a street in Larnaca was named after him in 1966. So at present, as we speak, there's at least one Indian Army officer in the UN peacekeeping force in Cyprus. Right,
yes.
We'll also go back to our colleague Shubhendu Ghosh, who is standing by in Cyprus as we speak. We'll try to connect with him in just a bit. But going back to our guest, Ambassador Sinha. Ambassador Sinha, the visit of the Prime Minister, as it unfolds before our very own eyes, the two leaders are now holding delegation-level talks. In terms of significant or substantive outcomes, besides symbolism, of course, we saw the President of Cyprus receiving him at the airport yesterday. In substantive terms, any specific outcome that you in particular would be looking forward to?
I think on three fronts, I think there should be progress. One, of course, is in terms of our political relations. They have been very close, and as the professor mentioned, that even though a summit-level meeting is taking place after 23 years, at least a bilateral visit to Cyprus is taking place after 23 years, but there have been close contacts with the foreign officers in both the countries, our foreign ministers, etc. So politically, there will be a further strengthening, an exchange of views on the very dire situation in the Middle East, if I could put it that way. And also, as far as the economic cooperation and trade and investments go. As I mentioned earlier, Cyprus is an entry port for us to Europe. And with the FTA pending, I think Cyprus is going to play a major role. And with the tariff wars unleashed, there is considerable volatility in the international trading environment. And the fact that we were able to agree on an FTA with the UK is a positive thing. And I hope the EU, and I think EU does realize the importance, because after all, why would they come with their president and 26 or 27 odd commissioners to India at one time last year? So that was a message being conveyed, and I'm hopeful that we would be able to agree to a mutually beneficial FTA, sorry. And the third component would be security, defense and security.
Yes.
I think we need the closest cooperation between our two countries, and I hope something emerges from this visit.
Right, we'll be watching out for the outcomes of Prime Minister's visit to Cyprus. Shubhendu Ghosh, our correspondent in Cyprus, Nicosia particularly, the capital, is joining us. Shubhendu, our delegation level talks on. Also, what happens after the press statements?
Right, Munmohan, as we speak, the delegation level talks are on. It'll be interesting to note the manner in which the two leaders take forward the engagement between India and Cyprus. The expectations are sky high, particularly in the domain of trade and investment, in the manner in which the strengths of one another's economy for India, particularly the digital public infrastructure, of the financial infrastructure such as Unified Payments Interface, UPI, what is the manner in which Cyprus could in fact be a part of it. Those are some of the areas of interest. On the point of security. The nations have always spoken in one voice. They've taken a similar stand as democracies, as supporters of international law. How the leaders also articulate the current geopolitics is something that will be interesting for us to look out for. There's greater emphasis on renewable energy, on innovation in that domain in particular, and clean energy. India has set an ambitious target for island nations. It is a crucial step forward to ensure the survival in the future. So in that sense, renewable energy, clean energy future, clean tech is an important prospect to discuss. Startup also, young innovators from both the countries, how could they come closer, work together for the prosperity of the two nations are also high on agenda. Connectivity, again, we are waiting to learn about the manner in which that IMEC, the ambitious India, Middle East, West Asia, Europe corridor, could in fact be taken forward. It was announced during India's G20 presidency, and Cyprus, later Croatia, the Prime Minister would visit in the third leg of his foreign tour, would also be an important component of it. So expectations are very high. We'll have to wait and watch what are the areas in which agreements are reached and what kind of vision ahead is presented by the two leaders.
Shubhendu, we don't intend to prejudge the outcome of those talks, but that said, do you think, given the past precedents of joint statements between India and Cyprus, which have spoken about both countries being on the same page as far as the Cyprus question is concerned, the territorial integrity of Cyprus, do you think that will figure in the joint statement or the joint press statement?
Expectations are on the similar line, Ramesh, and quite frankly, both countries have always spoken very clearly on the matter. India has always, in very clear terms, supported Cyprus's right to sovereignty, to territorial integrity, and especially in the context of the Turkey question, the invasion and the aftermath since the 1970s. Similarly, Cyprus has also been a very strong supporter of India's fight against cross-border terrorism. When the Pahalgam terror attack happened, Cyprus was one of the first countries to, in no uncertain terms, condemn the terror attack. So in that sense, they are natural partners as far as the fight against extremism, fight against terrorism, fight against geopolitical bullying is concerned. So given that they both also have an immediate context, which is a sensitive one, it is likely that the two leaders would want to articulate not just their own perspective, but what the partnership of the two countries mean on issues of such geopolitical significance.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. Shubhendu, we'll let you go to cover the press statements by the two principals. Well, Ambassador Sinha, coming to you, do you think the time is right now to upgrade the India-Cyprus relationship to a strategic partnership? When Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone to Greece in 2023, you would remember that India had, and Greece of course, had upgraded the partnership to a strategic partnership level. Do you think the time is right to upgrade the relationship in one way or the other?
I would certainly think so, given the current situation in the region, in the larger region of that. I think Cyprus is a time-tested old friend, and I think it plays an important role. Even though it's small in size, it has a very important role to play in regional politics and geostrategic affairs. And I think it will be the benefit of both the countries if we upgraded this relationship. I think more than upgrading the relationship, I think is the content of the relation that's important. And because we have so much going together and such a history, I think we really need to build on that. And we can build, as I said, on multiple fronts. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will be taking forward this relationship to a new level, which would only be commensurate with the close ties that we've had with Cyprus in the past.
Right, Ambassador, do stay on. Let me bring in Professor Bharadwaj back in the discussion. Professor Bharadwaj, I want to ask you the question that we asked of our colleague Shubhendu Ghosh in Cyprus. Now, while we are waiting for the talks to end and the leaders to appear before the media for a joint statement, looking at the outcomes from previous joint statements between India and Cyprus, do you think this time again the two leaders can be expected to focus on issues such as zero tolerance to cross-border terrorism and also territorial integrity and sovereignty of both countries?
I think correctly, security would be one of the prime objectives of the statement, joint statement, and there.
Let's tell the viewers at this point in time that you are looking at visuals from delegation-level talks that are currently underway in Nicosia, the capital of Cyprus. Remember, This was preceded by a tete-a-tete between the two leaders, Prime Minister being conferred with the Cyprus's highest honor and ceremonial welcome that started day 2. It's also the final day of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Cyprus. Professor, please go ahead.
Of course, security would be one of the prime point that they are going. But my point is that a part of security or developing comprehensive strategic partnership to counter terrorism and other maritime security and all those issues, I think India and Cyprus is looking forward on 4 areas. One is, of course, the cultural connectivity is very important. Historically, we have shared the common values of anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, non-alignment, independent foreign policy, and that. The second is very important is the commercial connectivity, because that Cyprus is the 10th largest investor in India, but we are also looking to increase the volume of trade between the two countries, particularly in the pharmaceutical sector and other areas where steel and all that we can have this commercial connectivity and investment. The third very important point is that the physical connectivity, that how you can connect with the Cyprus to the European countries, and I particularly pointed out that how the India is going through that India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, where Cyprus can become a gateway to the European Union, and Cyprus is also taking the chairmanship of the European Union, so that it would definitely connect and strengthen this corridor that is connecting to Europe, to the Asian countries, to the Middle East, and that would be extended to the Southeast Asian countries. The fourth connectivity is again very important, is the capacity build-up connectivity, and that capacity build-up connectivity is basically bringing the service sector. Service sectors where the two peoples, the two expertise, two skilled labor of the countries in technology, in health, in education, they will connect to each other. And once you are connected with Cyprus, you will also connect with the entire European Union countries in particular. So that the physical connectivity is very important. While the final point is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is always talking, let's have the, we'll meet the, and come out with the digital divide that has been created, the developmental divide that has been created over the years. So that this infrastructural, digital and developmental divides and the gaps has to be met. And there he talks at, in the G20 summit, that unless until we will not come and develop a common voice, that is the voice of the global South, you cannot meet these, the divides, the digital divides, developmental divides, and technological and science divides that has been created over the years. And once we will meet that, then we will have equal responsibilities on the global commons. If it is not that the South will take more and North will not pay the responsibility because they have already developed. So my point is that these are the fundamental 5 areas that would be covered under the different MOUs and different statements that would taken place between the two prime. And that you can see the chemistry is very strong. The way that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has honored while during his visit, and the way the Prime Minister President of Cyprus has come and received him from the airport, you can see he has very strong chemistry. He have very strong personality, and he is very much welcomed and welcomed in Cyprus. So his leadership, the thrust areas in today's context are very important to develop a strong strategic and economic partnership between India and Cyprus, and that would lead to, that would connect to the Asia to the European countries, and that new emerging threats that you can say in the non-traditional areas and traditional areas, where the countries, they are having aspirations to have the nuclear power. They're having, and you know that even the non-state, violent non-state actors like Houthi, like Hezbollah, like Hamas, and even the Al-Qaeda and all that, even in Afghanistan, you know, these Tariq-e-Taliban and all these, they are sometimes they may acquire the nuclear arsenals in near future if this regime this international atomic energy or nuclear regime do not have very strong hold and control and vigilance on the developments taking place in the West Asia. And this is the region that the countries in the Middle East, in the Arabian world, are concerned about the Iran, because Iran is a fanatic Islamic revolutionary state, and that has come out. Maybe this was due to the Americans, but now the Americans are basically concerned about that Iran's, that way they are trying to acquire the nuclear bomb. That Pakistan, you know, today they are blackmailing the nuclear arsenal, and they are behind this blackmail, they are promoting the terrorism across the border. Right. And I think entire world is understanding the consequences of these nuclear arms that they are going to acquire. So I think now it is a time that we, being a country of Gautam Buddha, being a country of Mahatma Gandhi, we should talk about the people building all over the world. And there, if you can have a partner like Cyprus, and that can become a voice in the European Union, that has been the theater for the World War I and World War II. And today, tomorrow, if these kind of understanding in the European Union would be developed, I'm sure there would be a sustainable peace all over the world. So I think what India talks about Sarvodaya, what about India talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that what India and Modi talks about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, these visions can be achieved while we are having strong and long partnership with it.
Indeed. Ambassador Sinha, talking about the messaging or signaling behind the Prime Minister's three-nation tour of Cyprus, Canada and Croatia, we know that Cyprus is a member of the European Union but not of the NATO. In contrast, Croatia is a member of NATO. But looking at the visit as a whole, do you think the European Union has acquired a salience of its own, given the geopolitical flux that we see around us, including Trump's economic policies and tariffs? So does that bring India and EU closer together, given the logic that exists between the two?
Certainly. I think the EU plays a very important, it's one of our largest trading partners, and in this environment of volatility and flux, I think agreements with the EU are going to be very important, especially the economic, the trade agreements and investment agreements. They're very important, because individually with some of the European powers, whether they be Germany or France, particularly France, but also the UK, we have good bilateral relations. But it's important to work with the EU as a whole. And till now, getting an FTA done with the EU was a Herculean task. I mean, we have been talking about, I think, for more than a couple of decades, if I'm not mistaken, off and on talking about FTAs. But the urgency imparted now with the US, imposing unilateral tariffs and upsetting the global trading environment in many ways, I think it's important for countries and groupings to see who their important partners are and to build on partnerships to try and hedge or balance against the policies or the uncertainty being introduced or injected by unilateral action. So I think the India-EU partnership is very important. And I think the signaling is very clear that Cyprus, bilaterally, we have excellent relations, and we are going, we're going to build on that, but also Cyprus is an important member of the EU. You mentioned Croatia. I believe this will be the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Croatia, and that's important given the fact that Croatia is a member. And not only that, it attracts a very large number of Indian tourists that visit Croatia. And I think we need to build on the relationship with Croatia. We've had excellent relations with the erstwhile Yugoslavia and, of course, components like Serbia and Croatia and others. But I think we are going to build on that. But the G7 element is very important, not because of the fact that G7 remains an extremely important organization. Well, it does, but it's basically a club of the rich, as they used to be called, and they lost their relevance at some point of time. But the fact that the leadership of these countries are going to be together with the invitees is important. And the focus will be on President Trump and the meetings that he has with individual leaders. So I think for us, also for the Prime Minister, it will be important to set the tone and to, if any, apply any correctives that may be required to be injected into this relationship, not just with the US, but also with the other countries, with Canada, the host. I think this is a great opportunity for a reset in bilateral relations with Canada and a greater appreciation and sensitivity on Canada's part on our concerns regarding terrorism and extremism. So I think this three-nation tour is a very opportune one, comes at a very critical time for not just India, but for the entire world, and certainly the Europe, the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, etc. And I think the timing couldn't have been any better.
Yes. Focusing on Cyprus, I'll come to you, Professor. I'm looking at the 2017 joint statement, and it's been 8 years since that was released, and it refers to several subheads like India-Cyprus historic relationship, a cooperative partnership. It talks of investment promotion, trade economics, India-EU relations, NSG, international terrorism, UN reforms, regional issues. In all, so do you think that in these 8 years, has the strategic content changed significantly enough to add more portions to the joint statement, or to change it significantly?
I think what you're mentioning, I think the context today is, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, though he's going to participate in G7 summit, but the timing is very important at this point. This is his first visit after Operation Sindoor, and that India has suffered from a very lethal terror attack on the civilians, the tourists that has been attacked in Indian Jammu Kashmir region. So I think while he went to Cyprus, and he's going to visit G7 countries, joining the meeting, and then coming to Croatia, that all the three institutions or countries, you will find that India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi would emphasize on countering terrorism, and will look forward to have a active participation on war on terror, and let the world understand the pain that India has been having for last more than 3 decades, and particularly from a neighboring country that is run by the deep states, that is run by the. So I think while he will talk about the counter-terrorism, he will also talk to promotion of the liberal democratic ethos and values all over the world, including. And this was when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after becoming Prime Minister in 2015, he went to Japan, and there he talks that we will not talk just democracy in the neighborhood, we will promote the liberal democratic ethos and values globally. So I'm sure that this democratic ethos and values, particularly because there is a deep deficit of these liberal democratic ethos and values in the Middle East countries, and including some of the South Asian countries. So India with the Cyprus and G7 will raise these issues of strengthening liberal democratic ethos and values to promote the open and free voice of the people. So this would be the second important. And third, again, I would say would be that how you can have the Sarvodaya. In fact, how you can have the human-centric development, the development of humanities. I think, and for that, one point Prime Minister Narendra Modi has categorically mentioned that we will have a balancing approach between the development and between the environment, between the materialism, between the spirituality, and we will have the Madhyam Marg, we will have the middle path that has been inspired from the Mahayan philosophy of Buddha, and that has also been the spirit and ethos in the Indian culture and Indian society. So we want a development, ethos-based development. It's not like we go over the big, and we do not bother about environmental issues like the Chinese are doing all over the world. We are concerned about the environmental issues, and that's why Prime Minister Modi again and again talks that let's have the green energy, let's have the green energy, let's have the energy transitions, because we are looking a healthy, prosperous, peaceful world rather than a conflicting world that has been led by the state-centric approach rather than the human-centric approach. So I think these would be the core principles, ethos, while they will come out with a joint statement here, and that would also become the mandate, and that would also become an agenda for the G7 visits, where they, that last this is the 7th meeting that he is participating. The Indian Prime Minister is participating in G7 summits. So the India's significance, importance has been realized by the leading economies of the world. So and they are also looking that India is a promising market, middle class market, which is having the youngest population of the world. So and that could also become a destination for the investment and trade. So everyone wants to connect with India, and I think that while we are having the leadership like Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and who has given a model to the Indian people initially while he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, that he's transformed, and that transformation was very inclusive. Now he is trying to do this transformation at the India level, and that is also again inclusive. And he is also looking that while we are developing the country, we are also looking to develop our neighbors and the extended neighbors. So Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is only possible while we have the holistic and very constructive, positive approach having in our domestic as foreign policy. So I'm sure these issues would be considered while he is having the joint statement and he is participating in the next G7 summit. So India's view and his voice has been constantly heard globally, and that the best example he has given to the world while he organized the G20 summits, where all the countries has participated very constructively, very positively, and we have also included African Union into this fold.
Right, just to bring our viewers up to speed with the latest, the joint press statement between the two leaders of India and Cyprus can be expected soon. We'll get you the live broadcast of that event in just a bit. But going back to Ambassador Sinha for a quick comment before we cut live to that much anticipated statement. Ambassador Sinha, just to take off the point where Professor Bharadwaj left.
हमारे लिए एक बहुत ही विशेष
ηγέτη της μεγαλύτερης δημοκρατίας στον κόσμο, αποτελεί ξεκάθαρη απόδειξη των ισχυρών και ιστορικών δεσμών φιλίας, एम्बिस्टोसिनीस
ऐतिहासिक मित्रता है, एक दूसरे के प्रति विश्वास है और हम एकजुट है, जो कि कई वर्षों से हम दोनों ही देशों के लोगों को एकजुट कर रहा है। साइप्रस और भारत के बीच के संबंध हमारे साझा ऐतिहासिक अनुभव और मूल्यों पर आधारित है, जिसने कि हमारे साझी संघर्ष रहे हैं स्वतंत्रता के लिए और हमारे लोगों के सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन के लिए। ये वास्तविकता तब बने क्योंकि हमें शांति, डायलॉग, सहयोग, लोकतंत्र और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नियम के लिए सम्मान पर विश्वास था, इसलिए हो सका। और हम दोनों ही देशों के बीच में एक बहुत ही स्पष्ट सामरिक ओरिएंटेशन है। हम लॉ ऑफ द सी पर विश्वास रखते हैं और ये निसंदेह हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय जो नियम है उस का संरक्षण करने में विश्वास रखते हैं। हमने यूनाइटेड नेशंस की जो चार्टर है, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ यूनिवर्सल वैल्यूज, डिपेंडेंट टेरिटोरियल इंटेग्रिटी किसी भी देश की, और प्रधानमंत्री जी की यात्रा के दौरान हमें अवसर मिला है कई ऐसे विषयों के बारे में चर्चा करने का, जिसमें कि द्विपक्ष हमारे जो देश हैं उसके बीच के संबंध के बारे में बात की, भारत और ईयू के संबंध के बारे में बात की। इसके अलावा हमने एक क्षेत्रीय जो स्थिति थी और आईमेक के अंदर हमारी जो सहयोग है, इंडिया मिडल ईस्ट यूरोपियन कॉरिडोर, इसके बीच में हमारे सहयोग के बारे में भी बात की है और साइप्रस प्रॉब्लम के बारे में भी हमने बात की। हमारी जो द्विपक्षीय संबंध है उसके बारे में अगर मैं कहूँ तो जो हमारी राजनीतिक हमारी निकटता है और हमारे लोगों के बीच में जो अच्छे संबंध है, इसके अलावा हमने और अधिक विस्तार करने की सोची है सामरिक सहयोग में कई सारे क्षेत्रों में। और कल हम बहुत ही सफलतापूर्वक एक बिजनेस फोरम में भाग लिया जिसमें कई सारे उद्यमियों ने भाग लिया और बहुत ही रुचि दिखाई। दोनों ही देशों के बिजनेस जगत के लोगों ने कुछ बहुत ही विशिष्ट घोषणाएं भी हो चुकी हैं। इस संदर्भ में आज हमने इस बात पे चर्चा की कि हम आपस में अपने व्यवसायिक और आर्थिक सहयोग को कैसे आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं। कुछ साइप्रस के लिए भी लाभदायक होंगे जो कि हम दे सकते हैं। हमारी एक जियो स्ट्रेटेजिक लोकेशन है जिसकी वजह से हम ईयू के जो बाजार है उसके प्रवेश द्वार के रूप में काम कर सकते हैं और भारत के पास अवसर रचना और प्रतिभाशाली मानव संसाधन है। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि और क्षेत्रीय और यूरोपियन बेस को हम प्रदान कर सकते हैं भारतीय व्यवसाय के लिए।
हमने अपने द्विपक्षीय सहयोग को बढ़ाने के बारे में भी बात करी और कई विभिन्न मुद्दों पर सिनर्जी के बारे में, रक्षा सहयोग, संकट प्रबंधन, पर्यटन और नवाचार और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के क्षेत्र में भी काम करना चाहते हैं और हम सहमत हुए इन सभी क्षेत्रों में एक साथ मिलकर काम करने ताकि हम विशिष्ट परिणाम दे सकें, ठोस परिणाम। और जो हमारी संयुक्त घोषणा है जिसको हम आज अपनाने जा रहे हैं, ये एक पॉइंट ऑफ रेफरेंस है और ये एक इस बात का प्रमाण भी है कि हम राजनीतिक तौर पर हमारी इच्छा शक्ति का, हमारी प्रतिबद्धता का, ताकि हम अपने सामरिक संबंधों को और अधिक मजबूत करना चाहते हैं। देवियों और सज्जनों, प्रधानमंत्री के साथ हमें अवसर मिला कनेक्टिविटी के विषयों पर भी बात करने के लिए। एक देश के रूप में साइप्रस 3 महाद्वीपों के बीच है और हम भारत की साझेदारी को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। क्षेत्रीय पहलुओं में हम शांति, स्थिरता, समृद्धि और सतत विकास को बढ़ावा देना चाहते हैं। यूरोपीय संघ के सदस्य राष्ट्र के रूप में और हमारा जो देश है, हम भारत के बहुत निकट हैं, सबसे निकट राष्ट्र है यूके और हमारी इच्छा शक्ति है, हम चाहते हैं कि हम सभी पहलों को अमल करें और आईमेक जैसा एक कॉरिडोर जो है जिससे हम भारत से जुड़ सकते हैं, भारत और मध्य पूर्व के माध्यम से हम भारत को यूरोप के साथ जोड़ सकते हैं आईमेक कॉरिडोर के माध्यम से। जहां तक ईयू और भारत के संबंध है, मैंने प्रधानमंत्री को आश्वासन दिया कि जब साइप्रस ईयू परिषद की अध्यक्षता संभालेगा तो हम बहुत एक प्राथमिकता देंगे ईयू और भारत के साथ संबंधों को और हम बहुत योगदान देंगे ताकि हम इस सामरिक साझेदारी को हम और बढ़ा सकें और हम एक महत्वाकांक्षी एक समझौता करना चाहते हैं, एक मुक्त व्यापार समझौता भारत और ईयू के बीच में, जिसका हम अपने आर्थिक संबंधों को और राजनीतिक संबंधों को और मजबूत कर सकते हैं। हमने प्रधानमंत्री जी को निमंत्रण दिया है कि काउंसिल ऑफ यूरोप यूनियन की जो अनौपचारिक बैठक होगी जो कि साइप्रस में होगी अगले वर्ष, हमने इसके लिए प्रधानमंत्री को आमंत्रित किया है और हमने प्रधानमंत्री को साइप्रस समस्या के बारे में भी उनके साथ बातचीत करी। हम तुर्की के जो है अवैध जो कब्जा है इसको समाप्त करना चाहते हैं और हम साइप्रस गणराज्य का गहरा आभार व्यक्त करना चाहते हैं भारत के प्रति, भारत के लोगों के प्रति, उनके समर्थन के लिए। साइप्रस की क्षेत्रीय अखंडता के प्रति उनका समर्थन और हमारे पुनः एकीकरण के लिए, क्योंकि वर्षों से भारत ने ये रुख अपनाया है। और अब मैं सार्वजनिक तौर पर ये कहना चाहूँगा कि जो हमें समर्थन मिला है भारत से, जो यूनाइटेड नेशंस की शांति रक्षा बलों में, इसमें भी भारत का योगदान है। और सैकड़ों जो है भारत के शांति रक्षकों ने सेवा करी है यहाँ पे और इस वक्त भी सेवा कर रहे हैं बहुत ही समर्पण के साथ। प्रधानमंत्री की जो यात्रा है साइप्रस में, ये पहली यात्रा है जो हाल के बहुत ही कायराना जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है पहलगाम में। और मैं सार्वजनिक तौर पर एक बार फिर दोहराना चाहूंगा कि साइप्रस गणराज्य का पूरा समर्थन है भारत के साथ। हम भारत के साथ खड़े हैं आतंकवाद के खिलाफ उनकी लड़ाई में। आतंकवाद के हर रूप से लड़ना है, आतंकवाद को हम स्वीकार नहीं कर सकते। और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, हम आपके साथ खड़े हैं, हम आपके अधिकारों की रक्षा करते हैं ताकि हम सुरक्षा प्रदान कर सकें आपके नागरिकों को। प्रिय प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपकी जो यात्रा है साइप्रस में, ये यात्रा बहुत ही ऐतिहासिक है। भारत और साइप्रस के बीच जो सहयोग है एक बहुत ही इसके लिए एक नई गति हमने इसको प्रदान किया है। हमारी संबंध जो है हमारे साझे मूल्य पर आधारित हैं और हमने जो लक्ष्य तय किए हैं इनसे हमारे दोनों देश के लोगों को लाभ मिलेगा। और भू राजनीतिक और स्तर पर, यूरोप के स्तर पर भी सबको लाभ मिलेगा। हम साइप्रस के लोगों की ओर से आपका स्वागत करते हैं और गहरी मित्रता के हमारे भावनाएं हैं आपके प्रति। और साइप्रस और भारत एक साथ मिलकर आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे, अपने सहयोग को सभी क्षेत्रों में मजबूत करते रहेंगे। बहुत बहुत आपका स्वागत है यहाँ पे।
योर एक्सेलेंसी, राष्ट्रपति जी, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के सभी साथी, नमस्कार। कालिम मेरा। सबसे पहले मैं भव्य स्वागत और आतिथ्य सत्कार के लिए राष्ट्रपति जी का हृदय से धन्यवाद करता हूं। कल जब से मैंने साइप्रस की धरती पर कदम रखा है, राष्ट्रपति जी और यहां के लोगों ने जो अपनापन और स्नेह दिखाया वह सीधे दिल को छू गया। अभी कुछ देर पहले मुझे साइप्रस के इतने बड़े सम्मान से अलंकृत किया गया। ये सम्मान केवल मेरा नहीं, 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का सम्मान है। यह भारत और साइप्रस की अटूट मित्रता की मोहर है। इसके लिए मैं एक बार फिर हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, साइप्रस के साथ हम अपने संबंधों को बहुत महत्व देते हैं। लोकतंत्र और रूल ऑफ लॉ जैसे मूल्यों में साझा विश्वास हमारी साझेदारी के मजबूत आधार है। भारत और साइप्रस की मित्रता न परिस्थितियों से बनी है और न ही सीमाओं से बंधी है। ये समय की कसौटी पर बार बार परखी गई है और समय के हर दौर में हमने सहयोग, सम्मान और समर्थन, इस भावनाओं को जीवंत रखा है। हम एक दूसरे की संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता का सम्मान करते हैं। फ्रेंड्स, 2 दशक से भी लंबे अंतराल के बाद किसी भारतीय प्रधानमंत्री की साइप्रस यात्रा हो रही है और ये आपसी संबंधों में एक नया अध्याय लिखने का एक स्वर्णिम अवसर है। आज राष्ट्रपति जी और मैंने द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के सभी पहलुओं पर व्यापक चर्चा की। साइप्रस के विजन 2035 और विकसित भारत 2047 के विजन के कई पहलुओं में समानता है। इसलिए हम साथ मिलकर भविष्य को आकार देंगे। अपनी साझेदारी को स्ट्रैटेजिक दिशा देने के लिए हम अगले 5 वर्षों के लिए एक ठोस रोडमैप बनाएंगे। रक्षा और सहयोग को और मजबूती देने के लिए द्विपक्षीय डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन प्रोग्राम के तहत रक्षा उद्योग पर बल दिया जाएगा। साइबर और मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी पर अलग से डायलॉग शुरू किया जाएगा। क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म के विरुद्ध भारत की लड़ाई में साइप्रस के सतत समर्थन के लिए हम बहुत बहुत आभारी हैं। आतंकवाद, ड्रग्स और आर्म्स की तस्करी की रोकथाम के लिए हमारी एजेंसीज के बीच रियल टाइम इंफॉर्मेशन एक्सचेंज का मैकेनिज्म तैयार किया जाएगा। हम दोनों सहमत हैं कि हमारे आपसी व्यापार और निवेश में बहुत पोटेंशियल है। कल राष्ट्रपति जी के साथ मैंने दोनों देशों के आर्थिक संबंधों को लेकर बिजनेस जगत में एक उत्साह और सिनर्जी को महसूस किया। हम एक पारस्परिक लाभकारी भारत और ईयू फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को साल के अंत तक संपन्न करने के लिए काम कर रहे हैं। इस साल भारत, साइप्रस और ग्रीस बिजनेस और इन्वेस्टमेंट काउंसिल भी लॉन्च किया गया है। इन इनिशिएटिव से दोनों देशों के बीच आपसी व्यापार और निवेश को भी बल मिलेगा। टेक्नोलॉजी, इनोवेशन, हेल्थ, एग्रीकल्चर, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, क्लाइमेट जस्टिस जैसे क्षेत्रों में आपसी सहयोग पर भी विस्तार से बात हुई है। साइप्रस में योग और आयुर्वेद के प्रसार को देखकर हम उत्साहित हैं। भारतीय टूरिस्ट के लिए भी साइप्रस एक पसंदीदा डेस्टिनेशन है। उनके लिए डायरेक्ट एयर कनेक्टिविटी बनाने पर जोर दिया जाएगा। हमने निश्चय किया कि मोबिलिटी एग्रीमेंट को जल्द पूरा करने के लिए काम किया जाएगा। फ्रेंड्स, यूरोपियन यूनियन में साइप्रस हमारा विश्वसनीय पार्टनर है। अगले वर्ष साइप्रस की यूरोपियन यूनियन अध्यक्षता के लिए हम शुभकामनाएं देते हैं। हमें विश्वास है कि आपकी अध्यक्षता में भारत और ईयू संबंधों में नए आयाम जुड़ेंगे। यूएन को समकालीन बनाने के लिए जरूरी रिफॉर्म्स को लेकर हमारे विचारों में समानता है। साइप्रस द्वारा सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में भारत की स्थायी सदस्यता का समर्थन करने के लिए हम आपके आभारी हैं। पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप में चल रहे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को लेकर हम दोनों ने चिंता व्यक्त की है। इनका नकारात्मक प्रभाव केवल उस क्षेत्र तक सीमित नहीं है। हम दोनों मानते हैं कि यह युद्ध का युग नहीं है। संवाद से समाधान और स्थिरता की बहाली ये मानवता की पुकार है। मेडिटरेनियन क्षेत्र के साथ कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ाने पर भी हमने बात की। हम सहमत है कि इंडिया मिडिल ईस्ट यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर से क्षेत्र में शांति और समृद्धि का मार्ग प्रशस्त होगा। राष्ट्रपति जी, मैं आपको भारत यात्रा के लिए सादर निमंत्रित करता हूं। आशा करता हूं जल्द ही भारत में आपका स्वागत करने का अवसर मिलेगा। एक बार फिर इस विशिष्ट आतिथ्य और सम्मान के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
That was a press statement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the President of Cyprus, Nikos Christodoulides, in Nicosia. This happened after the tete-a-tete and delegation-level talks between the two leaders. And very importantly, first, the President of Cyprus said that they would want India to have greater engagement in the region. And then Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that this relationship has stood the test of time. It is neither dictated by restrictions nor circumstances. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also thanked Cyprus for the constant support that Cyprus has given to India on the question of cross-border terrorism, also for supporting India's candidature for permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council. And towards the end, we saw Prime Minister also speaking about how he expects IMEC to bring more stability in the region. And he said we also discussed the West Asia crisis, referring to the tensions that are ongoing between Israel as well as Iran. And he said that this is not the era of war and there needs to be stability, which can be brought in only after dialogue.
Indeed, just to recap the highlights from the Prime Minister's statement there, a couple of announcements. One, for instance, Munmun, a 5-year roadmap for India-Cyprus bilateral ties going forward, number one. Number two, a defense cooperation program to boost or strengthen defense ties between the two countries, India and Cyprus. Number three, a cyber security and maritime security dialogue to start between the two countries. He spoke about direct air connectivity between India and Cyprus, and also he hoped that a mobility agreement can be finalized soon between India and Cyprus. And as you mentioned, Munmun, that they referred to both the Iran-Israel conflict as well as the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And he said that this is not an era of war. And that also one other important announcement, India-Greece-Cyprus Business Forum has also been launched.
Yes, so those are the takeaways. And he also spoke about the need to have an India-EU FTA by the end of the year. And we earlier heard the President of Cyprus say that they will play a pivotal role in ensuring that India's interests vis-a-vis its relationship with EU are safeguarded, and in also expediting the India-EU FTA talks. Prime Minister also said that he expects those FTA talks to be concluded by the end of this year, that is 2025. So those were some of the takeaways from the two press statements by the principals in Nicosia, the capital of Cyprus, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the first leg of his 3-nation tour to Cyprus, Canada for the 51st G7 summit, and then to Croatia on his way back home. Manju Seth, former Indian Ambassador and Consul General of India to Madagascar and Comoros, is joining us. Ms. Seth, a number of takeaways from the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Cyprus. How would you put that into perspective for us at the bilateral level, regional and global level? If you could unmute yourself, Ambassador, please.
Yeah, the visit has come at a time soon after Operation Sindoor, we see. And this is also a messaging, I think, to Turkey, which stood by Pakistan on the issue. And Cyprus already has issues with Turkey, which has occupied part of part of Cyprus. And I think this was a clear messaging by India that Cyprus has a very good, long-standing relationship with India. Both of us have had very good ties, and it has been very supportive, including on Operation Sindoor, in the UN and everywhere else we find on every issue in all different, UN organizations and other multilateral organizations. Cyprus has always been very supportive of India and its position. And if you look at the visit in the context of Cyprus taking over the presidency of the EU next year, that's another important, aspect where, if as is expected, the India-EU FTA will be concluded by the end of the year, and Cyprus has given the assurance that it will ensure a smooth implementation. I think that's a very positive indication, a positive step by them, and will go a long way in strengthening the India-EU partnership as well. And India and Cyprus together have, also this, if you look at the special honor that was given to our Prime Minister on arrival, and also the highest, award given to him of their civilian award, I think all this is some indicative of the importance of this relationship for both sides, and especially for Cyprus. And it has a good, a lot of potential in different fields, as very rightly mentioned. In the press conference also, there is, in innovation, in AI, in the UPI, in all, and all the MOUs and others that have been concluded today, will, I think, go a long way in increasing investments, of course, and our bilateral trade, but also the financial connectivity between the two countries. And I think it will be an important step. And given its key location, Cyprus's key location in the Mediterranean, will be another factor in ensuring the success of the IMEC, which has been, that's the India-Middle East corridor, economic corridor. It has been delayed, but it, when implemented, will be a very important connectivity corridor, connectivity project, and another alternative route to the current, sea routes, etc., between India and Europe and further to America. So I think all whatever has been covered, defense, technology, AI, every possible aspect has been covered in the discussions today, and between the two sides. And I think it will be an important visit, and it is an important visit, and will signal a further strengthening of the close bilateral partnership.
Ambassador Said, we are approaching the end of our time, so a quick last comment from you, especially dealing with the specifics of defense cooperation. For instance, you contrasted India's ties with Cyprus with India's ties with Turkey in light of Operation Sindoor, how Turkey has stood by Pakistan, supplied it with drones, and also turned a blind eye to terrorism emanating from Pakistan. In that context, would you welcome this renewed focus on defense cooperation ties between India and Cyprus, especially the 5-year roadmap for both countries, and as well as a defense cooperation program going forward?
Absolutely, it is a very important, important development between the two countries, and this roadmap will ensure that our defense cooperation becomes stronger. And of course, it is a message to Turkey and its approach after the Operation Sindoor, and the way it has, not looked at what are the facts of the case. And we have had good relationships with Turkey, but that was not a factor. They went straight away and supported Pakistan without looking at our or giving any importance to our long-standing ties. And I think there's a clear message for us also to understand, for India to understand who its friends are and who stands by with it in different situations, in times of trouble. And of course, if we see Cyprus stood with India, and we find that defense is an important, India is emerging as an important defense player in the defense arena. And this collaboration between the two countries will strengthen security in the region, and also for Asia and for the Mediterranean region. And we will see further strengthening of this cooperation.
Yes, we'll leave it at that. Ambassador Manju Said, thank you so much for joining us. We would also like to thank the other guests who were with us, Ambassador Sinha, Ambassador Panda, as well as Professor Bharadwaj, for joining us on this special broadcast that you can see India and Cyprus trusted partners. In a short while from now, we expect Prime Minister Narendra Modi to conclude the first leg of his three-nation tour to Europe and North America and head to Canada for the 51st G7 summit, and later in the third leg go to Croatia on his way back. We'll keep you posted on all the developments as they play out. Our correspondents will be joining us from ground for the second and the third leg of Prime Minister's three-nation tour as well. I and Ramesh take your leave. Namaskar.
Thanks for watching.